Masechet Yoma Nun He 55. We are dealing with the sprinkling of the blood of the Kohen by the Kohen Gadol in the Kodesh Kodashim, and we're going to deal with the famous part that we say in the Avodah, that he does 1 up and 7 down, and he expresses it each time and counts. So we'll see all the details and where we derive all this from. So first of all, we start. The Mishnah says that he shouldn't direct it carefully up or down, but rather kimaslif. So my kimaslif, what does this mean? Like someone who whips. Machveh Rabbi Yehuda keman gedana. So Rabbi Yehuda made some kind of hand motion. We don't know what he did, but someone like someone whipping. I'll give 2 interpretations. One is that when someone whips, one goes down the back, so starts high and then goes down, lower. However, the Mishnah did say don't try to put it in exact location. So the other interpretation is that it should be a whipping motion with his finger. In other words, don't take a drop and put it down carefully, right? But rather take a drop and just kind of throw it wherever it lands. So that's the whipping motion that maybe he showed with his hand. Good. Tana. Now we're braita. Keshu mazeh eno mazeh ala kaporet ela keneged obya shel kaporet. I'm going to show you the pesukim in a second, but right now we're saying that he doesn't, even though the pasuk says ala kaporet, it doesn't mean literally that he's going to put the blood on top of the kaporet, the cover of the ark, which has the kiruvim on it. No, but rather just towards the thickness. The thickness means the side of it, and not even on the side of it, just towards it. It's going to fall on the floor. So ala kaporet is not literally on top of the kaporet, but rather towards the kaporet. Oh, kishehu mazeh lemala mesaded yado lemata. When it says lemala, that means underhand, which means the back of his hand is facing down. And so when he throws it that way, it's going up in an upward arc and then going to come down. That would actually probably travel farther. And when it says lemata, mesaded yado lemala. When it means up, down, that means the back of his hand is up, right, like this, and he's doing it in an overhand, and therefore throwing it down. So that's what up and down means. So whenever we say up, it means underhand in an up arc, and lemata down means overhand. That is just going to go straight down in a downward arc. All right, that's what the Baraita says. And so now that we know that, we ask, what is the source for all this? Okay, before we see the answer, I'd like to show you the Pesukim, because we're going to do a lot of Midrash on these Pesukim. And the truth is that if you're just reading it yourself, you have to do some figuring out what exactly is even the Peshat. So we're dealing with Pesukim 14 and 15. 14 is about Dam Hapad. That's what you do first. And then Dam HaSa'ir is second. Remember, it has to be that order. Okay, so let's see. He takes from the Dam Hapad, right? That's the other Kohen was mixing it this whole time. And he's going to sprinkle it with his finger on al peneh. So al peneh means al peneh. Sounds like on top. It sounds like it's literal. Kedma, to the east. The eastern side, that's what the Kohen Gadol is standing. He's standing to the east, right? He's facing the western wall. So he's on the eastern side of the ark. So kedma lifnei kaporet yazeh sheba pe'amim min hadam be'espa'o. And also, this sounds like something else he does. Lifnei kaporet, before the kaporet. So you see here al peneh kaporet and lifnei kaporet. In Peshat, we might say that al peneh sounds like on top of it, and maybe lifneh means in front of it, on the floor. So the al sounds more literal. Lifneh sounds like it's not really touching it.
But doesn't Kedma speak about where he's standing?
Land.
He should toss it to the east.
Right, but the blood will land to the on the eastern side of the ark.
But that's a forced reading, I think.
Well, it can't. Otherwise, he has to do it all the way over the other side.
Right.
So lifnei kaporet yazeh sheba pa'amim min hadam be'espa'o, and in front of it he does it 7 times with his finger. So you see that he has 2 sets of sprinklings. One is al, and the other one is lifnei. The one that's al doesn't say how many. The one that's lifnei says 7. Okay, keep that in mind. Then we read the next pasuk, V'shachat et ha'sa'ir ha'chatat asher la'am. And so he's going to go and slaughter the second sa'ir and bring that blood into the Kodesh Kodashim. Ve'asa et amo kasher asa ledam hapar. And whatever he did with the pod, he's going to do with the blood of the sa'ir. Now, you could have ended the pasuk there, period, right? That's it. Do the same thing. But instead, pasuk goes on and says, "Viza oto ala kaporet velifnei kaporet." It repeats that it should be al and lifnei. So you have these two things, al and lifnei. Again, here, al and lifnei. We're going to see the Gemara is going to interpret al to mean the ones that are go up, right? That's lemala, and lifnei means down, lemata, right? So I mean, al does sound like going up. Okay, so here it says oto ala kaporet. Oto is singular. So from here, the Gemara is going to learn that was only one that's going up, right? That's achat lema'ala. And for the sa'ir, it doesn't say how many are going down. It just says lifnei kaporet. Okay, so here's what we have to do. We have to combine these pesukim and see that we have an equal sign. Asat tamo kasher asat pad, that's an equal sign. That means pad is equal to sa'ir. But each one teaches us something that the other doesn't. The par teaches us that it's going to be 7 times lifneh. Lifneh means down. So now I know 7 times down, but it doesn't say how many times up. The sa'ir says oto, singular, that's 1 time up. It doesn't say how many times down. Once you have an equal sign, we can learn each from the other. So that's basically what the overall. Still, you have some extra words because here, I need to know Viza or talk about, but I don't really need lifnei kaporet. I could have just had the equal sign. I don't need these words. And for this one, it says Espao apenei kaporet kedma. I don't really need those words because I could learn it from sa'ir. All right. So either you could have just told me in one place, this is 7 and this is 1, or if you want to split it, fine. This is 7, this is 1, and it's equal. Then I would know. So 1 up, 7 down, and so we have 2 extra phrases within these 2 pesukim. Okay, so this is all very, very interesting, and you could figure out what you think of the peshat is and why it has these extra words, and why it says 7 here, and why it says al and peneh, and what these all mean. But in general, the al sounds like, if you just had al by itself, it would sound like, yes, you really put it on. Lifneh sounds like, no, you just do it in front of it and it doesn't touch. But the Gemara is not going to split the difference by like that. It's going to say both of them mean that it doesn't touch the ark. It's just the manner in which one throws it up or down. Okay, with that background, it should be easy to understand these dirashot. So Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar Rabbi Zera Amar Keraviza Oto Al Hakaporet Velifnei Hakaporet. This is the second pasuk regarding the sa'ir. Now, lo yomar lemata besa'ir de lo sarich de gamar mimata lepar. We don't need the pasuk regarding downwards of the sa'ir. This pasuk that says this part that says lifnei hakaporet. We don't need it because we can learn it from downward of the pod. The pod, it says how many times downward? 7 times. So you don't need to tell me this phrase at all. So lama ne'emar. Therefore, why how come in the second pasuk regarding sa'ir does it say anything at all? Lifnei hakaporet, meaning downward. La kusheh al lelifnei. So this extra word says that when we interpret the word al, you should interpret it in the same manner that we interpret the word lifnei, since lifnei is the extra word. Ma lifnei de lav al, afal de lav al. It's a confusing phrase. It means just like lifnei means not literally on it, it's not touching it. So too the word al is not literally on it, not touching it. Rather, lifnei, just like lifnei means you do it towards the front of it, but it lands on the floor in front of the ark. So to al means on, doesn't mean literally on, but rather towards the top of it. It's like maybe a higher throw. If you would try to get it on top, maybe you would do it underhand so it could reach that far, but you don't actually touch it. So that's how we learn that both of these are not literally going to touch the ark. So that's the extra word of the sa'ir, velifnei hakaporet. All right, so that sounds okay, except that you can make the exact opposite argument. Adrabah. Lo yomar lemala bepar de lo sarich. Why do I need the upwards regarding the pad of the first pasuk? Since it doesn't say how many times you do it up, so I need the second pasuk that says oto, regarding Sa'id. And then I could just learn, since they're equal, that the Pad, I do one up. So I don't need any pasuk to tell me regarding Pad that I have to throw it up. The Gamar mima'ala de Sa'id. I learned it from the Sa'id. So lama ne'emar. So why do I have the upward phrase regarding Pad? La kushe lifne le'al. So that I can learn the word, what lifne means from the word al. Ma'al al mamash. So al, if you just had that by itself, you'd say that means literally, has to land on top of the kaporet. So to lifne means al mamash. Lifne means has to touch the side of the kaporet. And so it really does have to touch, and both of them are touching the top and the side. So I could learn equally that way. So now we're going to reject the second way and land with the first. Hai mai I amat bishlama lemata de sa'ir la kushe kama. The punctuation in the Steinsaltz is incorrect. The comma should be here. I amat bishlama lemata de sa'ir la kushe. If you say that the lemata, the downward phrase of the sa'ir, this one that says lifnei kaporet, and that's the extra one. That la kushe, and that's the one that I'm going to learn from that. Just like that is not actually touching, so too al is not actually touching. Then the ma'lam mitepad, then the first pasuk which says up is an extra word. And what am I going to do with the extra word regarding pad that goes up, because I don't need it? I have something I need to do with it. Al peneh kabolet kedma zebanaav komakom sheno al peneh eno ela kadim. So since in that pasuk it does say kedma in this pasuk, it doesn't say kedma in this pasuk in the second one. So since it's al peneh and kedma, so this is actually binyanav. Anytime it says the word al peneh, that phrase, it always means on the eastern side. So I need that phrase. That extra phrase is good. I need that extra phrase to teach me something. So that's the first reading. But if I follow the adraba, the second reading, and I say that the upwards phrase regarding the pad, the first pasuk, that's the one that I'm going to use to compare lemala to lemata. And just like al is literal touching it, so too lifneh is literal touching it. If I say that, then lemata desayed lemayata. Then the pasuk down regarding going down of the sa'ir, right? This one lifnei kaporet would be extra, and I have nothing to do with it, right? It has no information. So therefore, it's much better to read it the first way. This lifnei kaporet, this is extra, and it's teaching us, just like lifnei means not touching, so too this al means not touching. And then I know neither of these are touching, and so neither of these are touching. And so you still have an extra word here, al peneh kaporet. I know that I have to do up, and I know that from here that it's once. So this phrase is coming to teach me kedma, that al peneh means kedma. So everything is taken care of. But if I do the opposite, I say this phrase al peneh means literal touching, and therefore this lifneh means literal touching, and therefore all these are literal touching. This phrase lifnei kaporet is hanging there, and extra is not needed. So that is the proof that none of these phrases means that it actually touches. Okay, good. So that was now that we accepted that. Tenora banan, further baraita. V'hiza oto al hakaporet v'lifnei hakaporet. So this is the second pasuk regarding sa'ir. Lamadu kama lemala b'sa'ir achat. From this pasuk we learn that the upwards one, it says oto, that means just one goes in the upward motion. Lemata b'sa'ir and yodea kama. But regarding down of the sa'ir, it doesn't say in the second pasuk how many times you do it lifneh, meaning down. So hadeni dan. I'm going to learn through reason. Ne'emrun damim, or comparison. Damim lemata bepad. It says blood regarding the pad that goes down, right? The first pasuk, it says 7 times down regarding the pad. And it says that the seed also you have to go down, but it doesn't say how many. So we're going to learn the 2 downward motions from each other. I know the pad is 7 times down, so too Sa'ir is 7 times down. So it doesn't say anything at all regarding Sa'ir. So it makes sense to learn it from the pasuk right before, right? Do the same thing. It says there's an equal sign. Okay, so that makes sense. But you might argue this in a different way. Right? You can follow a different path of reasoning. Let's just compare the two instances of sa'ir. It says upwards regarding sa'ir and downward regarding sa'ir. Just like in sa'ir, you throw it upward once, and that says explicitly oto. So too, downward would be one, right? I mean, I just compare the sa'ir to the sa'ir, and they say this is 1 and 1. It's not like the pod. The pod was 7. This is a different animal, 1 and 1. A different animal, literally, right? ונראה למי דומה, דנין מטה ממטה ואין דנין מטה מלמעלה. So no, we want to do the thing that's the most similar. And what's more similar? We should learn downwards from downwards, just like downwards of the pot is 7, so to downwards of the sa'ir should be 7. And you're not going to learn something downwards from upwards, meaning within sa'ir that up is 1, so to down is 1. It makes sense to do down and down are more connected to each other. We or argue, where you can say, I should learn this itself from it itself, meaning sa'ir from the sa'ir. It's the same thing that you're talking about. And don't learn this item from some other item, this animal from some other animal, right? So with questions, what to compare it to? What is the closer similarity? Therefore, that pasuk, the second pasuk, goes out of its way to give you an equal sign and says, do the blood of this one, the sa'ir, just like it did the dam hapar. Why do you have to say asher asa like you did it? That the doing should be the same, the action should be the same. Just like for the pod, you go 7 times downwards, so too 7 times downwards for the sa'ir. So that phrase comes to tell you that you really could compare it 2 ways. What's missing? What don't we know? How many times did you go downwards with the sa'ir? So you could make a comparison, horizontally. You do it just once, just like the upward of the sa'ir, or you could do it vertically, learn from the previous pasuk. And so this phrase says, yes, learn it from the previous pasuk. Do all the actions the same, 1 and 7, and also 1 and 7. Okay, good. Now we're going to just do the same exercise for the pod, for the 7. Lamanu kama lemata bepad ubesa'ir sheba. So now we learn how many times do you go downwards for the pod and the sa'ir? 7 times. Lemala bepad and neodea kama. So regarding the pod, sorry, anu kama lemata bepad. Say 7. Sheva lemala bepad, and neodea kama. The pod said 7. The sa'ir does. We don't know how many. And any dan. Nemru damim lemala besa'ir. Nemru damim lemala bepad. Okay, now we're talking about the 1, right? Okay, right. So sorry. So we did the 7. Okay, here we did the 7 down. Fine. Now the upwards with pod, I don't know how many. Right. Now we're going to upwards. Regarding upwards, I know that the sa'ir is 1. Pod, it doesn't say how many, so I'm going to make a comparison. It says the word damim lemala besa'ir, v'nemru damim lemala bepad. I know I have to throw upwards regarding sa'ir, and I have to throw upwards regarding pod. Ma lemala besa'ir achat, just like the second pasuk in sa'ir, it says upwards is 1. Af lemala bepad achat, so therefore pod also should be 1. Is that a good line of reasoning? Or you can argue a different way. Maybe I'll compare the bull to itself. Just like regarding, it says down and up regarding pod. Just like I throw it down 7 times. So to upwards, I should learn pod from itself and also throw it upwards 7 times. Well, that's true. You do have a comparison of pod to pod, but it's maybe more similar to learn the upwards motion from the other upwards motion. And so just like the sa'id is upwards once, so to pod should be upwards once. Wait, is that really more similar? Maybe I should learn it itself, this animal from itself. And so therefore learn that it should be 7 for both and not learn one animal for another. תלמוד לומר ועשה את דמו כאשר עשה, שאין תלמוד לומר כאשר עשה, ומה תלמוד לומר כאשר עשה, שיהיו כל עשיות שוות. That's why the pasuk comes and adds this extra phrase, do this just like you did the other one. Why do I have to say kasher asa? Just say asa damo. So when I say just like the other one, that it's doing should all be the same. The same very actions, 1 and 7, should be this way and that way. Keshem shemata bepad sheba, kach lemata besayir sheva, shem shemala besayir achat, kach lemata bepad achat. So just like we have explicitly regarding the bull that's 7 down, so I'm going to learn the other way that sayir is also 7 down. And it says explicitly regarding sayir that's 1 up, so I learned for the pod that's also 1 up. Oh, good. And now we learned everything, and that makes the most sense to learn it vertically, one pasuk from the other, and not have different numbers of sprinkling for the different animals. Okay, so that's clear enough. Now the Mishnah goes on and says the Kohen Gadol has to count achat ve'achat, achat u'shtayim. Why does he have to count like this? Tenora banan. There's 2 opinions actually how to count. One says achat, you do 1 up, and then achat ve'achat, then you do 1 down, but you still keep account of the other one. Achat u'shtayim, achat ve'shalosh, achat ve'arba, achat ve'chamesh, achat ve'shesh, achat ve'sheba, and you still remember all the one up, even though you're counting the ones down, 1, 2, 3, 4, till 7, so you end up with 1 and 7, like counting balls and strikes. You keep count of both as you're going along. That's a b'meir. Rabbi Yehuda omer achat, achat ve'achat, shetayim ve'achat, shalosh ve'achat, arba ve'achat, chamesh ve'achat, shesh ve'achat, sheva ve'achat. He just switches the order and says the second word is what you did lemala. The first word is the lemata. So that's when you count up for the second word. Okay, there's no fundamental difference between them. The Kohen Gadol is doing the same actions, right? And one's not saying that you should do 7 times up or anything like that. It's just that they have different styles in different places, right? Like in America, we put the month first and then the date, and everywhere else in the world they put the date first and then the month, right? It's okay. You can put the bigger number first, the smaller number first. When you're keeping score in ping pong, people have different, you always do the higher number, the other person first. There's different ways of counting, so there's different styles. That's okay. Okay. But everyone agrees that you have to keep saying 1, repeating 1 every time. Why? Just say 1 up. I did the 1 up. Okay, now stop counting that. Now just count the downs, right? Why do I have to say 1? Repeat 1 every time. Rabbi Elazar says a simple practical reason not to make a mistake. If you're going to just be counting 1 and then you counted another 1, wait, this 1 that I counted, was that the one from this one, or is that 2? He doesn't know what he's up to. So you keep count of both. And that way you won't make a mistake and confuse the first calculation with the second calculation by keeping them separate and repeating them. So that's a simple reason. Second reason, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kera v'lifnei kaporet yazeh. She'en tamud omar yazeh, u'ma tamud omar yazeh, limed al hazah rishona shesilicha minyan im kol achat ve'achat. This is the style of Midrash Halacha, by the way. That always, when you have an extra phrase, it says, this is not teaching anything. Or can't be, it's not teaching anything. Oh, so what is it teaching? It's teaching you that that this 1 yazeh you have to keep account of. So we could look at the pasuk. And you see how it's extra, because it says here v'hizah already that he's going to sprinkle it in front of nekapodet yazeh. If you took out this word yazeh, you wouldn't be missing anything. This with nekapodet also sheva pa'amim min adam. This hizah could go on both. So this yazeh is extra to say it's a separate sprinkling. It's a separate count. It needs a separate count. So according to the Rabbi Elazar, it's just a pragmatic reason. According to Rabbi Yochanan, he's learning it from the Torah. It's like a deoraita. Yes, you have to keep it separate and keep counting it. So what's the practical difference between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan? My benayu, ika benayu de lo mana velo ta'a. What if he didn't count? He forgot to count, but he didn't make a mistake. So according to the Rabbi Elazar, it's just there to help you. So if you didn't make a mistake and you didn't count, it's okay. Whereas according to Rabbi Yochanan, no, it's a mitzvah to count. And if you didn't do it, you missed out on a mitzvah. Torah says, go ahead and do it. It's not just good advice, not just a nice idea. So you really have to do it. Okay, so now we took care of the counting, and he did all the sprinklings inside. Now the Kohen Gadol is going to go out to the Kodesh, and he's going to do the same thing, sprinkling towards the parochet, right from the outside. But he has to do the pod first, and then the sayid. So he just did the pod, and then the sayid. Now he has to switch the blood because he's holding the sayid. He has to switch it back with the pod. And in the Mishnah mentioned that there's a stand where he puts it down and picks it up. There's a machloket regarding the stand. Rabbanan says there's two stands, one for the damapad, one for the damasayid. That way he's holding the sayid, he could put it down, and then you could use his right hand the whole time and pick up the other one. Whereas the Biudah says only one stand. According to the Biudah, since he's holding the sayid, he would have to go and pick up the pod, put down the sayid, and then he could take the one of the pod and do the next sprinkling. So we're going to analyze the opinion of the Biudah. Why does he insist on only having one stand? Right? Was he too cheap? They could afford two stands. What's the problem here? So we learned Tenan Hatam. We're going now to Masechet Shekalim. Remember, there was no Talmud Bavli. There is no Talmud Bavli to Masechet Shekalim, and yet this sugya looks like it is perhaps a remnant of the Bavli interpretation of Masechet Shekalim, because you see, as we'll see, it focuses on Mishnah Shekalim and happens to bring our Mishnah in incidentally. So that's why we bring this all here. It's related to our Mishnah. Okay, but now we're going there. Tenanatam Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Lo hayu shofarot leqinei choba mipnei hata'arovot. So Mishnah there, according to the Rabbi Yehuda, says that there was, remember we learned that there was 13 different shofarot, which means tzedakah boxes. They weren't actually shofar, but they were shaped as shofar, small on top, so people could put the money in, and it would gather inside, and then they couldn't reach your hand in and steal it. So there was a lot of shofarot for all different things, and there were two collection boxes for birds. Now the Tanakh Chachamim say, why were there two? One was for korban chova, and one was korban nedava. Some people have to bring birds, like zav, and so they put it in there. Other people, voluntary, they want to bring birds, they put it in the other one. That's Chachamim. The Biudah argues and says, I agree, there's two for birds, but they're all for voluntary offerings. So why are there two? For different kinds of birds. One's for pigeons and one is for doves. But there's nothing for obligatory. That's what the Biudah said. Now, and he says why? Because of ta'arabot, because they're going to get mixed up. He is afraid if you're going to get mixed up and with the voluntary and the obligatory, it's a big problem, because who's going to get mixed up? First of all, people coming, they could put it in the wrong box. That's not such a big problem. Even worse problem is the Kohen who comes and empties out the boxes. He might get them mixed up. And now all the ones that were chovah, he might treat them as nedava. And that would mean that all the people that needed to bring them, they're prepared in a different way, aren't going to get their atonement the way they were supposed to. Or the other way is also bad. So since they could get mixed up, the Biudah says nobody's allowed to bring put the money in for obligatory offerings. For obligatory offerings, you have to come and give the money or the bird to the Kohen directly. You can't use the boxes. Okay, so now we're going to analyze this. What's the Biudah worried about getting mixed up? Right? Why is he worried about that? He's worried about mixing up obligatory with voluntary offerings. So that's why all voluntary. If you get mixed up between the two different types of birds, well, we'll talk about that in a second, but it's not as bad. Amar le Abaye, v'na'abed tereh, v'nichtob alayu he dechoba v'he dindaba. Says, what's the problem? Just make a sign. We have two boxes, and you put a sign. This one's choba, this one's nindava. If you have a sign, you won't get mixed up, right? What's the problem here? Well, we have a picture of this. This is a picture. I forgot to show you the picture of upwards motion, downwards motion. Here's a picture of the collection boxes that look like a shofar. We learned in Shekalim that they were in a round shape. But you have a label on each one, and since each one's labeled, right, you don't have to worry. So you just write one chova, one nedava. So what is the Biudah going to say about that? The Biudah let le ketiba. The Biudah does not hold of writing. What do you mean doesn't hold of writing? He thinks that writing is not enough of a solution. People, you put up, a lot of times you put up signs and nobody reads the sign. They say, how come you didn't tell me that, there was going to be an event tonight? There's signs all over the Bet Knesset. Nobody reads signs. So you can put the sign there, and the Kohen who's emptying it out, after empties it out, which one did I empty out? He doesn't realize, and he can get mixed up. So therefore, better to avoid it at all. Okay, so we see from here, the Yehuda thinks that people get mixed up, and writing doesn't help people getting mixed up. That explains the Mishnah in Shekalim. Now we're going to challenge this from our Mishnah here in Yoma. Ditnan, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, lo haya, not challenge it, but support it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, lo haya sham ela kan ehad bilbad. Over here, you have the two vessels, one with the blood of the pod, one with the blood of the sa'ir, and he says only one stand for both of them. Today, my tamalo, why doesn't he make two stands? Mishum de mechalfe, because they're going to get mixed up. Wait, there's no problem. Why can't you have two stands and you make a sign? Put a sign on the stand, on the vessel, and write, this one is the blood of the Sayyid. This one is the blood of the pod. So you can have two vessels, and that way the Kohen could always use his right hand. He could keep his hands free. Maybe he needs to go do something, right? And easier to have two stands, isn't it? So here's a proof that writing doesn't help. You could put a sign and still he could pick up one and not pay attention to the sign and make a mistake. Whereas if you have only one stand, then that's better because he knows he's holding the sa'ir because he just did that. That was what he finished with. And then he's going to switch them. When you're in the middle of switching, you're not going to get mixed up because you pick one up, you put one down, right? It's like, right there in front of you. So then you'll be okay. And then once you have one, then you go and do the next thing. Okay, this happens a lot when you go and you make yourself and someone else a cup of tea. You bring them in and you say, oh, well, which one's which? One has sugar, one doesn't, right? So it's hard to know. You get mixed up when you're holding both for a long time. So if you're switching it right there and they're not sitting there. Otherwise, if you have two stands, you put it down. I don't know, maybe you could go tie a shoe. He's not wearing shoes, but okay, he goes to something else. He can get mixed up. Okay, so then we see here that writing is not sufficient, a sufficient reminder. You still might get mixed up. Now we have a challenge to this. This challenge is back from Shekalim, where the Mishnah there says, Shalosh esrei shofarot hayu bamikdash. והיה כתוב עליהן תקלין חדתין ותקלין עתיקין וכינין וגוזלי עולה ועשים ולבנה וזהב וכפורת ושישה לנדבה. So we're just elaborating a little more on what these 13 collection boxes were for. And they had signs on them. One says for the new Machasita Shekel, meaning Machasita Shekel for this fiscal year. Tikin is for the previous fiscal year. If you forgot to give Machasita Shekel last year, you can put it in that box. Kinin, because these are the two that are for birds. One are called nests and one are called gozele ola. So that's the question here. Are these, or is this nedava and chova, Chachamim say, or is it two just different types of birds, which is a Yehuda says? And other way, if you want to donate wood or frankincense or gold for vessels, or 6 more for just korban nedava that they would give any time. Okay, so those are the various collection boxes. Now we go on and explain a little bit further. Tiklin chadatin el sheklim shel kol shana v'shana. Tiklin aditim mishelo shakal shtakad yishkol l'shana haba'a. This is not relevant for us, but now we mentioned that we're going to elaborate. So this is the new machazit shekel. The old machazit shekel kinin is torim. That's the nests are the doves. Gozele olah hen bnei yona. And those are the pigeons. V'chulan olot Rabbi Yehuda says these are all olah. These are not one. If the ones that are obligatory, you bring one for olah, one for chatat. He says no, all olot. They're all voluntary. So now this is a question because you see, even according to the Rabbi Yehuda, you still have 2 different collection boxes for birds. They're just different types of birds, and aren't you worried that you're going to get mixed up between these two boxes, right? If you put the wrong amount in the wrong box, then you're not gonna get what you paid for. And so you see that here the Yehuda is okay with it, and therefore it seems that he relies on the labels, right? You label one that this is for Torin, this is for Bnei Yonah, and the labels will work just fine, and people won't get mixed up. So now why are you telling me that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't accept labels? He accepts them to some extent here. So why not say also before he can accept them for different types of korbanot, and he can accept them to have two stands in the Bet HaMikdash for Yom Kippur for the different kinds of blood. So now this answer is rejected. The fact that he doesn't like these, it doesn't rely on labels. Instead, we need a new answer, a new explanation of why he does not want to have one collection box for voluntary and one collection box for obligatory offering. So now this explanation is only going to answer the Mishnah in Shekalim. It's not going to help us for Yoma of why there's only one stand. And we rejected this whole line of reasoning regarding the writing. So Kiatad Avdimi Amar Amre B'Ma'arava Gezerah Mishum Hatat Shemetu Be'aleha. Here's the problem. Here's why he doesn't want to have a collection box for Korban Chova, because there's a rule that if someone brings a Korban Hatat, let's say brings the actual animal, right, and then that person dies before they get to do the shechita and the chatat, that chatat has to go out and is burnt. It has to be killed and burnt. It cannot be used anymore. You cannot bring it as a sacrifice. So here's the same thing. We're going to have the same problem. If you have a box of money to collect for obligatory birds, one of them is going to be a chatat. What if someone brings it, he put this money in, and he left, and then he had a heart attack that day before the Kohanim got to offer it. And now you have this big box of money, and some of the money in it is for someone who died, which means now there's a problem. We don't know which money it is that we can go and take it out. And now we have a problem because we're not allowed to offer something for someone who died. And that's why the Yehuda says, no collection box for hatat for obligatory bird offerings. Now that's the answer. This doesn't help us for Yoma. Now, hold on. Do you really have to worry about that? If someone sends an animal and he lives far away, he sends his friend, please take I did a sin by mistake. Please take this for me. I can't go myself. And then he gets to the Bet HaMikdash. The Kohanim sacrifice it. And they don't have to worry and check. Maybe he died in the meantime. It could be 2 months later by the time he got there. We don't worry about that. We have a chazakah. When he sent it, he was alive. We assume he's alive now. I mean, maybe nowadays, you have to send him a text right before to make sure he's still alive. But they couldn't do that back then, and you don't have to worry about it. So too, once he puts his money in, it's like someone who sent his animal from far away, and you can assume that he's alive. We don't have to worry about this. So that can't be the problem of Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, it must be not an assumption, but we know the person died. But this guy, someone just came, put some money in, and when we know him, he's walking around there, right? And then he dies on the spot, and we see him, and we know he put the money in, so we know for sure. If you don't know for sure, safek, so you follow a chazakah. You know for sure now that someone who put money in this box died, and there's a chatat, and I can't use it. That's what Rabbi Yehuda is worried about. That's why he cannot have a collection box for birds that are chova. Last point. Okay, no problem. Let's take any random 4 coins out of the box. That's how much each person pays. And we'll destroy it. We'll throw it into the Dead Sea. And the rest of that will be okay. Now, we don't know for sure that that's the 4 coins that he put in, but it doesn't matter, right? We'll assume. All the money is fungible. All the money is, everybody who donated says, my money is connected with the rest. And so we'll take these 4, at least the value of what he put in, we took out, and we'll designate these are the 4 coins that represent his korban, and we're throwing them out, and then that'll be fine. Why can't you do that, Rabbi Yehuda? The answer is Rabbi Yehuda does not have the principle of berera, which means retroactive clarification. That we take these coins and now we say, let's make an assumption. We'll designate that these are the ones that he put in. It's a kind of it's a legal fiction that we're saying we're making an assumption that these are the coins. Other sages say you can do that. Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot do that. Since you cannot do that, that's why we're afraid that someone may die, and we'll know that his coins are in there, and there's no way to get them out, and then we're going to have a problem. We won't be able to sacrifice any of these coins for everybody else, and therefore, you know what? no collection boxes. If you have to bring a korban chovah of birds, then give it to the kohen directly. Okay, so that all will answer the question regarding shekalim. We're still stuck. We're left with our question. According to the Biuda, why does he have two? Why does he have only one stand? Why can't he have two stands? Right? And you label them. We're going to see the answer tomorrow, but just not to keep you in suspense. The answer is that on Yom Kippur, Kohen Gadol is fasting, he's tired and he's busy, and it's very easy that he makes a mistake, right? Usually people will follow signs and they're not going to get mixed up. But Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, we have to be extra careful because he's thinking about a lot of other things and he can be easily distracted. And therefore, that is in fact because we want to make sure he doesn't mix up the two types of blood. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.